Hi, Andy Nelson. The question I get all the time is, how do I know if my trademark is infringing on someone else's trademark? And unfortunately, there is no bright line test that will tell you whether you are in the green or in the red. Um, there are some varying tests nationwide, states, federal districts, but essentially the tests are very related, and it's a list of considerations. And the considerations are viewed with an eye toward asking or answering rather the following question: is there a likelihood, not a possibility, but a likelihood, or probability is probably synonymous, a likelihood that consumers would be confused as to source, sponsorship, or affiliation when seeing these, experiencing these two marks? That's the question to be answered. So as you can imagine, it's kind of this squishy test that doesn't have any just bright line check marks. But what I will say is there tends to be two factors, or two considerations rather, that tend to weigh heavier than a lot of the others. I won't talk about the other considerations right now because that's a lengthier video, but just the two that matter the most. And these will make sense to you. One is the similarity of the marks. Think about it, how alike or identical are the two marks a consumer is looking at? That weighs in. Related to that, however, is the relatedness of the industries or the goods or services that is being offered under those respective marks. And so here's my example, and I've given this example before. It's the Delta example, right? I say that word, and some of you think Delta Faucets, some think Delta Airlines, some think Delta Dental for insurance. The trademarks are identical, Delta. Now, yeah, there are different logos and coloring and that sort of thing, but you don't always experience those. Sometimes you just experience the word mark. You hear the word Delta, and that is an identical trademark. But I'm going to guess, to a person, not one of you was confused, or perhaps even thought you might be confused about any affiliation or connection between those three companies using the exact same trademark. And that's because those industries, the goods and services offered, are completely unrelated. There's not even, just nobody would think there's any sort of connection. Now, if I would have said Delta Faucets, Delta Dental, and then Delta Health Insurance, if that were a company, yeah, between those last two, Delta Health Insurance, Delta Dental, I don't know. Same mark, and industries that are complementary or related, might be some confusion. There's a possibility, I think, of consumer confusion in that scenario. Okay, so those tend to be the two considerations that weigh heaviest: similarity rather, a lot of syllables there, of the marks, and then the relatedness of the industry. So think about that. If you're looking at, you can make a pretty educated guess as to whether you're going to run into trouble if you certainly have marks that may have some similarities but are quite different, plus unrelated goods or services. You're probably going to be okay. But if you start moving along that spectrum where you have kind of convergence of similarity of the marks, and then some kind of similarity of the goods or services, or complementary, and that can be a little bit bizarre too, because I've seen before where third parties have held that, say, apparel is related to coffee, and a lot of you are probably saying, how is that possible? But there are those that think that. So it may not be, the answer may not be so apparent, and you may consider getting the assistance of a professional, meaning a lawyer in this case. But you can probably make some good educated guesses about whether you're really going to run into a buzzsaw for sure. You're probably going to be able to tell if you are going to be in trouble. If it's more in the middle somewhere, it may not be so clear. If it's on the other end of the spectrum, like a Delta Faucets, a Delta Airlines, you probably can make a pretty good educated guess that you're also going to be in the clear. So maybe that middle ground is where you might need to get some help. But at any rate, think about those two. If you're asking yourself this question, am I infringing, or am I going to infringe on someone else's trademark? Ask those, fold those two considerations into your brain initially. Similarity to the marks, similarity to the goods or services. And if that doesn't really provide you a good, clear answer, you might want to talk to a professional and see if you can get some more clarity on that. Anyway, that's it. If you have questions about this video, shoot me an email. Happy to talk further. Thanks.